So my last video was on Johnny Depp, Will Smith, and also Bongbong Marcos. And I was wondering, how did the Marcos come back into power? Fortunately for us, I have a Filipino who resides in Singapore. His name is Orion Preze, and he did a very succinct summary of how the Marcos came back to power. He gives you a whole timeline from Marcos to Aquino to Joseph Estrada Ramos, all the way to the current elected president, Bongbong Marcos. So educational, so sit back, relax, and it's all been summarized by a local Filipino just for you.
Greetings everyone. My name is Orion and I'm filming from Singapore. The person who was the front runner and has already emerged to be the winner is the son of the former president who was deposed, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. So basically we're talking about the son who won the elections, who is Ferdinand Marcos Jr. So many people who are a junior of the father, they end up having the nickname Bong. They were deposed. The father was deposed and the whole family was sent to exile in Hawaii, right? They were very much disgraced, and they were replaced by Corazon Aquino, who was the widow of the assassinated opposition leader during the time of Marcos. The opposition leader was Benigno Aquino Jr. The problem is this: Corazon Aquino was not very experienced, all right? And so many of us actually rooted for her. And in fact, my family, we've been very much pro-Aquino for the longest time. But eventually, along pretty much, I think, over a period of so many years, I think people became quite disillusioned with the results of her legacy. I didn't vote for Bongbong Marcos. Just to make that clear, I did not vote for Bongbong Marcos. I've been very much anti-Marcos for the longest time. So I didn't vote for him and I voted for someone else. His name is Norberto Gonzalez. To cut the long story short, when Corazon Aquino became president, she wasn't very experienced and she didn't do quite a good job, all right? There was a lot of instability. And I mean, the whole promise of getting rid of the Marcoses was to improve the Philippines greatly, was a totally broken promise. Her successor was actually Fidel Ramos. Fidel Ramos was a loyal general to her. Ramos, in fact, is a relative of the Marcoses. He's a second-degree cousin of Ferdinand Marcos. Whenever there were coups d'etats and all these rebellions going on against Corazon Aquino, he helped her out. He defended her. And that's why he became the anointed successor, Corazon Aquino. And he did a lot in order to try to make the Philippines a lot better. So he lowered restrictions. He basically tried to open up the Philippines to more foreign direct investors. He stopped the Philippines from just being purely like an American puppet. He pursued close bilateral ties with other countries. Somewhat start weaning ourselves away from just being purely America-centric. The key problem is this. When Corazon Aquino, his predecessor, became president, she changed the constitution back then. And the constitution that she sets up was hastily, hurriedly, and lousily written. This is the 1987 Constitution. A lot of the people who she chose were, again, it's that whole, it's basically getting everyone from all this wide spectrum of people, right? So you've got communists here, and then these so-called nationalists, fascist type people, whatever, I don't know, from all around. And most of the people that she got were just lawyers. They just happened to be lawyers and not that many technocrats, right? So when they wrote the Constitution, it was full of legalese and all these motherhood statements, all these feel-good stuff that in terms of the system that was set up, it was lousy. We ended up, essentially, it was not really an American-style presidential system that we ended up with. We ended up with a Mexican-style presidential system. So it's only one 6-year term, and then all the other terms also get term limits so that there's no continuity. Unlike in other countries, as long as you are good, you can continue to keep on getting elected. As long as the people continue to like you, yes, you continue to get elected. Now, people used to think that term limits were good. That's turning out to be wrong. Term limits, according to a lot of well-known political scientists internationally, they are basically saying that term limits actually cause more harm than good. So term limits are actually bad. Those are the facts. A lot of Filipinos don't know this. Here in Singapore, we don't have term limits here in Singapore, so no problem. I mean, there's more continuity, right? In any case, the constitution that Corazon Aquino set up was lousy, really, really lousy. And there was a point in time when Fidel Ramos, in his quest to bring in more foreign direct investors, and he was following the advice of then, at that point in time, Senior Minister Lee Kuan Yew. Bring in foreign direct investors, they will create the jobs, they will help you, they will pay taxes, the people who earn salaries will pay taxes, etc. They will teach your people the technologies, new methodologies, etc. They will educate your people, they will train them. Your people later on can end up becoming entrepreneurs by themselves. The secret of Singapore, basically. The Philippines does not have an electoral college. We have a Latin American style, or actually, more importantly, we have a Mexican style presidential system. Lee Kuan Yew mentioned that you guys in the Philippines, part of your problem is you are using this presidential system that is very difficult to use. We in Singapore or Korea or these other countries, they would have never become tiger economies, developed economies, had they used that same same presidential system used in America and in Latin America. Fidel Ramos, he wanted to shift over. He proposed shifting over to a parliamentary form of government to eventually move towards federalism. And then, of course, most importantly, remove whatever restrictions we have inside the Constitution. Now, one thing about the 1987 Constitution that was commissioned by Corazon Aquino is that it's the only constitution in the world that I know of that has explicitly mentioned that we do not like foreign investors. Essentially, they're saying this: if you are any company that wants to set up in the Philippines from abroad, you need to have a 60% local partner. And you, for an investor, you only get 40%. That's kind of the way it was. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what they said. Corazon Aquino, out of retirement, came out and started sabotaging her own successor, her own anointed successor, Fidel Ramos. Fidel Ramos was basically trying to fix the lousy system that was set up by that 1987 Constitution. He wanted to improve it. He wanted to upgrade it. From presidential system, make it parliamentary. From being protected, make it pro-foreign investors. So we bring in more job-creating investors. What happened? No, sorry, cannot. And that was a huge issue. That became a problem because she prevented us Filipinos from having a good system. And that's why we ended up really totally getting left behind by the rest of ASEAN. That's why when we were, during the 90s, we were still kind of like neck and neck with Thailand. Today, we've been left behind by Thailand, everyone else, and even by Vietnam. So Vietnam, just in 2020, December of 2020, we were beaten by Vietnam. So that's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. Estrada was himself a Marcos loyalist. However, the Marcoses were still very quiet. Even if Estrada won, the Marcoses were quiet. They were not in loud jubilation saying, "Hey, yeah, we won now. Our proxy won." Yeah, they were quiet, non-toxic, very quiet. And I think this is the credit that we must give to the Marcoses. So they became very humble. They became, I hate to say it, very gracious. It's kind of like this. They realized that people didn't like them, so they decided to hunker down, become quiet, become non-toxic. And they were very nice to everyone. And although everyone was always criticizing them, they never fought back. They were just quiet, and then they would meet up with other people who didn't like them. They would still kind of like invite them for dinner, that kind of thing. And then people started realizing they're actually quite nice people. That's how they did what they did. Now, Estrada, things kind of went a little down, but in fairness to him, he also wanted to fix the Constitution. So he did, in fact, propose to remove the anti-foreign direct investment restrictions in the Constitution. Now, unfortunately, it was found out that he had taken, I don't know, they say he took bribes, whatever, from an illegal gambling thing, payoffs and all that stuff. And so that's why he ended up getting thrown out of office after just a little over 2 years. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo is the daughter of a former president, Macapagal. That was President Diosdado Macapagal. Name recall helped her, but she's a PhD. She's a PhD in economics, and so she was very, very qualified. And she was actually a very good president, except that she was demonized a lot from Estrada's camp because she was the one who replaced him. She again wanted to continue the reforms that were started by by Ramos. She was basically a Ramos 2.0. Fast forward to 2009, Corazon Aquino died. And when she died, during her funeral, a lot of people basically paid tribute. And the Marcoses came to the church where she had her wake. It was the cathedral, the Manila Cathedral. They went there and they showed that they were nice people, So it's like the Marcoses were so non-vindictive, so non-toxic. And everyone said, oh my God, they're actually nice people. This is what happened, ladies and gentlemen. That's what happened. And I hate to say this, but people started to also see Corazon Aquino was kind of seen as somewhat toxic already, because she was always like second guessing her own people. So remember Ramos? She tried to second guess him. And her daughter, Chris Aquino, who had become an actress, was really toxic. And she was like, she had so many guys. I mean, she was like, I know for some reason she had so many men in her life. And she at one point said on television, her ex-lover, and the guy was a married guy. Okay. She said to her ex-lover, you gave me an STD. You gave me a sexually transmitted disease. Her son, Noynoy Aquino, was quite a lazy, incompetent, but he had the name. He bore the name of his father, right? And I said, this is the end of that family. I predicted back then that this would be the end of the Aquino dynasty. This will be their end. Why? Because I knew just how incompetent that man was. Noynoy Aquino became president, and what happened? Now, day number one, very toxic guy. Noynoy Aquino started to blame everything that was wrong. These things are not working, everything, I'm going to change it. My predecessor, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, is evil, blah, blah, blah. He was always doing that almost every day. 1 month and a few days after, that's when the Hong Kong bus hostage crisis happened.
The hostages inside the tourist bus are all dead.
The bus hostage massacre happened. That's the time when Noynoy ought to be given a Nobel Peace Prize, okay, for uniting both the mainland and Taiwan, because both the mainland and Taiwan, they both united in their hatred towards him and the fact that they became very angry towards Filipinos. That blunder was such a huge embarrassment that a lot of people started to think, oh my God, I made a mistake in voting for him. I didn't vote for that guy, I voted for someone else. I knew that he was going to spell disaster for the Aquino family and for the People Power Revolution legacy. I knew that. I knew that in 2009. And so that was not the only one. There were so many others. There was the Typhoon Haiyan. The government under Noynoy Aquino was so incompetent. He didn't know how to lead. He didn't know how to choose the right people, right? So the delivery of the relief operations was so lousy. And that was also what spelled the rise of Duterte. Why? Because Duterte, he basically sent in a very well-equipped, well-trained, well-stocked, a very high-tech contingent from Davao City. So Davao City, he was the mayor of Davao City then. And when the tragedy struck, they had a typhoon and people didn't have food, he immediately sent a contingent of fire rescue and police and, basically a contingent of city workers in the rescue people and even law enforcement people to go there. And they knew exactly what to do. Very impressive. And the government paled in comparison to them. The Noynoy administration didn't do a good job. And that's where Duterte rose to national prominence. And then there was the Special Action Force 44 people, SAF 44. These were special elite police who were conducting an operation, and they were massacred. And they were massacred because they were not given help. They were not rescued. Noynoy Aquino could have given the signal, guys, because there was actually another team that was there, and they were just waiting, and there was no go signal. And anyway, and he did not show up at their wake. He did not show up when the airplane came that brought the coffins back, etc. He basically was a no-show. He went to, instead, on that day, he went to an inauguration of a car manufacturer. I think there were like 50 major blunders during the whole 6 years of Noynoy Aquino. Major blunders. And as a result of those blunders, people hated him with a vengeance. They hated Noynoy Aquino with a vengeance. They hated his family with a vengeance. People started to think, look back. Everything that they did was wrong, etc., and so forth. They were actually... So people started to realize that they were not that good, that the Aquinos were not that good. Bongbong Marcos won with almost 60% of the entire vote because so many Filipinos got totally disillusioned and disappointed by the Aquinos. This is a protest vote. It's not because of ignorance, they lack knowledge, they don't know. It's not that. They voted for Bongbong Marcos knowingly. They did this as vengeance, as payback to what the Aquinos did. The Aquinos did so many things wrong, they let them down. They voted for the arch enemy of the Aquinos, which is the Marcoses. And they're basically saying, look, we want to erase the stain of you guys by putting in your arch enemies. You know, whatever you say, yeah, it may be true. Maybe they stole our money, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they did all kinds of things, but they seem to be better than you. That's the situation. I hope everyone now has a clearer understanding, because obviously the narrative internationally is still stuck on Marcos is bad, Aquinos are good. That's for the longest time people have been stuck on that. You watch CNN, you watch all the different channels from the US, from the West. They're still stuck on that. They still think that Corazon Aquino is a saint, Ninoy Aquino is a hero, Noynoy Aquino is the son of the hero and the saint. That's what they all think. But that has all changed.
And there you have it. Always good stuff from Orion Preze. And if you like this channel, please subscribe. We're going to bring you more great content on body language, facial expression, and also behaviors.